I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
It's Substance Abuse Recovery Month, and we'll get an inside look at the stages of recovery.
That anyone can call, and get help and get a referral, either to our program or to one that better suits their needs.
Plus, from alcoholic to being intoxicated by faith, we'll hear this Catholic writer's story.
I came as a prodigal daughter.
And a local bar is the setting for her powerful witness.
Basically what I'm going to do is just tell my story of how I came to God first and then to Christ through that.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Chances are someone you know is struggling with drug or alcohol addiction. According to one study, it affects nearly 1 in 10 Americans over the age of 12. But hope and help are available.
Tonight, as part of National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month, we bring you some personal stories of recovery, beginning right in our own backyard. Yesterday in Brooklyn, Catholic Charities held an open house at its Flatbush Treatment Center, offering both information and inspiration.
This is the first step. This is just the first step, and you could be on your way to recovery.
It's the reality that addiction is treatable, that help is available for individuals, for their families, and to really get the word out that together, in terms of policy making, in terms of community involvement, we can make major changes.
So today here at Flatbush Addiction Treatment Center, we're having an open house for our clients and also for the community. We're trying to promote the awareness of substance abuse and show everyone our facility. We have some artwork on display. We have clients walking around giving tours.
We are celebrating a lot of things, really. Recovery Month, which is happening in September, and this really is designed to get out the word that alcoholism, drug addiction is a disease that is curable, that is treatable.
So I came here and it clicked, I'm getting a lot of help with my problems. Some of the ways I'm dealing with it is through art, because we have a lot of things that's bottled up inside. So here, they let us express it that way.
Well, I'll tell them, don't be afraid, stop using something that's killing you. It's better to be off drugs than on drugs. That's my opinion.
This center is not only important to the residents of Flatbush, but like I said, the residents of Brooklyn, Queens, wherever, because substance abuse is prevalent everywhere. It's the pink elephant in the room no one wants to speak about. We want to reach out to people and know they're caring professionals that are here to help, and this is a great resource to have. Our 1-800 hotline is based here out of Flatbush Addiction Treatment Center, and this is a hotline available not just to Brooklyn residents, Flatbush residents, but to anyone who feels that they may be suffering from any substance abuse disorders, or maybe they have a relative, a spouse, a child, or anyone suffering from any substance abuse and or alcohol dependencies.
We treat people who otherwise really wouldn't get help. And that's a big part of the Catholic Charities missions, that anyone can call and get help and get a referral, either to our program or to one that better suits their needs. The whole goal of treatment is to move people from coming because they have to coming because they want to.
It's a home-like treatment. People feel more comfortable in this treatment than other treatments.
Here you got a good 9 to 3 schedule where at the end of the day you feel good about yourself.
And the people here have patience with you, because they understand that messing with drugs is a disease.
Well, some great work they're doing there at Catholic Charities. And, if you or someone you know would like to learn more, just visit our blog where you can find some more stories about what Catholic Charities is doing and all sorts of different things in the community. Just head to currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave.
Stay tuned. There's much more Currents straight ahead. When we return, we'll have the day's headlines, including a sex abuse lawsuit is filed against the Vatican, and for the first time, it actually names the Pope. We have that story and much more next.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up in just a bit, a self-proclaimed sober Catholic shares her story.
But first, let's turn to the day's headlines. President Obama is calling on other nations to rally behind the Mideast peace process. The president spoke before the United Nations General Assembly today. He said the future of the Holy Land depends on the world's willingness to stand up for peace.
If an agreement is not reached, Palestinians will never know the pride and dignity that comes with their own state. Israelis will never know the certainty and security that comes with sovereign and stable neighbors who are committed to coexistence. The hard realities of demography will take hold. More blood will be shed. I refuse to accept that future. And we all have a choice to make. Each of us must choose the path of peace.
Well, the president also took the opportunity to call on Iran to prove its nuclear ambitions are peaceful. Christian and Jewish leaders, meantime, gathered outside the UN this week to criticize today's appearance by Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. New portions of President Obama's health care reform law take effect today. Chief among them, provisions that stop insurers from denying coverage to children with pre-existing conditions or dropping policies for people who get sick. Well, still, polls show the law is unpopular, and the Obama administration is calling on religious leaders to spread the word about the new provisions. That's all in hopes of increasing public support. The president told faith leaders this week that they are trusted resources for friends and neighbors and can explain the law in terms they will understand. Catholic Health Association supported the law, but the U.S. Bishops' Conference opposed it. The bishops said that the law did not adequately restrict abortion funding. Well, the Vatican defended itself again today amid money laundering allegations. The Vatican Bank is accused of not fully documenting some money transfers. The Holy See says the actions could be, quote, clarified with great simplicity. The investigation started after Treasury police seized $30 million the Vatican Bank deposited in a Rome bank account back in July. A Vatican spokesman told the Financial Times the transactions were made between different accounts that the Vatican Bank holds, and he said a misunderstanding between financial institutions caused papers not to be properly filed.
A victim of clergy sex abuse in Wisconsin has filed a lawsuit against the Pope, marking the first time the pontiff has been named as a defendant in an abuse case. Terry Cahoot tells CNN he was molested numerous times by Father Lawrence Murphy, the headmaster of St. John's School for the Deaf in Milwaukee. Earlier this year, court documents showed Father Murphy abused as many as 200 deaf children at the school. Cahoot's lawsuit accuses Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict XVI, of neglecting to remove Father Murphy from the priesthood when the allegations came to his attention. The church denied any cover-up earlier this year and said Father Murphy was not removed because he was elderly and ailing in health. Meanwhile, the Episcopal Church has asked one of its bishops to step down over accusations he covered up sexual abuse committed by his brother 3 decades ago. Bishop Charles Bennison of the Episcopal Diocese of Pennsylvania told the Associated Press his resignation would not ease the pain of the victims, and he plans to stay in place. An appeals court in Florida Wednesday ruled the state's ban on homosexual adoptions is unconstitutional. Now, critics say they are concerned the decision could harm children. The 3rd District Court of Appeals upheld a lower court ruling that found no rational basis for denying adoptions based on sexual orientation. Florida Governor Charlie Crist praised the decision, but pro-family groups decried it as an injustice. Among them, the Family Research Council, which said in a statement that the decision does, quote, grave harm to the well-being of vulnerable children. And finally, gunfire is probably the last thing you would expect to hear at a picnic on the beach, but that happened to parishioners from one Massachusetts Episcopal church this week. Reports say the congregation had just ended the Mass and were enjoying their food when 2 hunters began shooting at geese on the beach. The rector of St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church in Hingham, Massachusetts, says 1 goose was shot and fell into the water, but it did not die instantly. Several children were there because the outing was meant as a time for kids to learn that God is not just found within the church walls. The rector says the shooting upset the children and their parents. Firing a gun is illegal in the town, but no charges have been filed.
Well, stay tuned. There's more Currents coming up.
Just ahead, she's been to the edge and back. This Catholic convert tells her story of hope.
my conversion to Catholicism was very closely intertwined with beginning to write.
Welcome back. Well, first she was parched and then she was redeemed. Those are the titles of Heather King's first two books, and they tell part of the story of her remarkable life, including her battle with alcoholism and her conversion to Catholicism. She joins us tonight to talk about that and more. Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Francesca. It's lovely to be here.
Really enjoy your writing. It's very poignant and it's very specific, and you talk about gritty things, gritty details like cigarette butts and warm stale beer that you would drink in the morning. First of all, how did you make it through Suffolk Law School in Boston when you were essentially drunk the whole time?
Well, I think there's a misconception that alcoholics don't have any willpower, that it's a matter of willpower that you can't stop drinking. But I, for one, and this bears out with many of my friends, have insane willpower when you want to get something done that will allow you to pretend that you don't have a terrible, terrible problem and that you have to stop. So I just would sober up at the end of the year when I had to take my exams and bury myself in the library. And I'm good at sort of self-flagellating type, really hard. So, and I really am good at taking tests. It's no virtue of mine, but so that's how I got through.
So you were able to get through that. And then this writing, this more memoir writing that is your life and the story of your life, which you so vividly describe. When did you start that? Was it during that period, afterwards? Was it before or during or after your conversion to Catholicism? Because you were raised Protestant.
I was raised Protestant. I was a total drunk for 20 years, went to law school, graduated, passed the bar, and hit a bottom with my drinking and realized I was completely powerless and that my intelligence was going to avail me nothing. And that's when I started turning to God. The obsession to drink was lifted. I was deeply grateful, deeply mystified. And so I came to God. I finally started going around to churches. I eventually found my way to Catholicism, the last place I ever thought I'd end up. And I always had the call of a writer, always had the deep call of my heart, always loved books, always wanted to be a writer, really the only thing I'm fit to do. And my conversion to Catholicism was very closely intertwined with and took place almost simultaneously with my beginning to write.
Right.
So I found Christ and I found my deepest
sort
heart.
of a portal there for you. And some of the things that you talk about are that you were divorced, you had an annulment, you had more than one abortion. These aren't exactly sort of the Catholic ideals, and yet talk to us about how maybe in a way they are in terms of compassion or forgiveness or some of the other things.
Well, I think we have a Savior who said, I came to call sick, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. And I came to call not the righteous but sinners. And so I think, not that you purposely stray far from the path in order to be called back to the fold, but I think that is how many of us come to Christ. You run out of your own ideas. You find how incredibly weak and feeble and needy and broken you are, and in need of help, in need of a shepherd. And so I came as a prodigal daughter.
And there's a vigilance that's required, right? Because the tendency to perhaps, outsmart ourselves sometimes can get in the way. And what is your daily practice or your weekly practice perhaps of being Catholic? What does it mean to you? What do you do? Do you go to church? Do you do readings? What do you do?
Yes, I have a big time in the morning where I try to say the office. I read that day's liturgy. I have some other little things that help me, readings that help me with my sort of human relationships. Not my strong suit. And I will just sort of sit quietly. I don't know. Prayer is such. I don't know if that's prayer. I don't know if that's contemplation. But I will often just sort of sit and just feel grateful for 20 minutes or half an hour. And I go to Mass often. I love Mass. And then my vocation is writing, and so I do that every day. And my life is ordered around that, and that means I get exercise every day. It means I do somewhat of a daily examination of conscience. It means I have a large group of people who I can call upon who are sort of spiritual guides. I run things I've learned, for the most part, I mean, this is an ideal day, to run things by people before, before you shoot off that email.
Right. Yeah, you check in.
Setting people straight.
Check
and
in.
Yeah, before making any sort of sudden moves. And so it's a whole, I think the point is we don't walk the spiritual path alone.
And along those lines, my final question to you is this, is what would you say to other people who are sort of, trotting this road of despair, or sort of in that darker period, and how perhaps when, or if they might be able to see the light?
I would just say, just to try to have as open a heart as you can. Pray for the willingness to ask for help. I think it's the thing that in human beings we're most resistant to admit our own powerlessness. And it seems that when we really get on our knees and ask, my experience, it inevitably appears somehow. The person, the book, the...
Sure.
So, and just keep participating in life. Keep saying yes instead of no.
Recently I heard someone say, don't be stingy with love.
Yes.
So, be abundant with love. So thank you so much, Heather King, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And you can follow Heather's life at her blog. We've posted some more information about that over on our blog. Just go to currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave. Stay tuned this week while she is in New York. Heather stopped by a bar to give a talk at Theology on Tap. We'll have that story next, so stay with us. Well, we just heard Heather King talk about her writing and her recovery. Earlier this week, she also had a chance to share her story with a group of people in a setting she once knew very well, a bar.
It was in Manhattan for a presentation by Theology on Tap, and our cameras were there.
I'm really, really humbled and happy to be here and to see so many people. And I've just spent so much time in bars in my life. I had a very long run as a falling down, blackout, drunk, and so it's really only God could have arranged that all these years later. I've been sober 23 years now, but these lovely people asked me to speak at their series, and I'm a Catholic convert, and I've written a book about my conversion called Redeemed. I do give a certain amount of talks, but I've never given one. I don't think I've given one in a bar before. But I love to be around people that are drinking, because as long as they don't drink like I did, which 99% of the population doesn't. And the title of my talk is actually Divine Intoxication. So that makes it even more fitting that we're actually at a pub.
She's wrote some great books about her conversion, about her journey from alcoholism to where she is now, to being cured of it. So yeah, it is kind of ironic that she's here at a bar. But you know what? Heather King is willing to come here to, like I said before, come here to where the people are, on a weeknight after work. So we will come to them, and we will, organize talks that will preach to them about the Catholic faith.
Basically, what I'm going to do is just tell my story of how my drinking, how I came to God first, and then to Christ through that. Because my story is one of, I gave up the money, basically. I gave up the money of being a lawyer to follow this deeper call of my heart, and that I think that is what Christ really calls us to. It's not, yes, we follow the rules, but it's really about coming awake and becoming who we truly were sort of meant to be and were put here for.
Host all these talks in a bar here in New York City. This way it gives people a chance to come, relax, socialize. It's a popular ministry. It's a place where you can meet fellow Catholics that think like you. It's a place that if you have questions about the Catholic faith, or you're not sure about how to practice your faith, this is a place where you can be challenged by the talks and the speakers.
And speaking of a challenge, I mean, Heather King doing that in a bar, having the, of course, you know because you talked to her just a bit ago about her addiction, and she said she's been sober for 23 years, so that's an amazing thing that now she's able to go into that bar and not touch it.
Right, and only through, she would say, I'm sure, divine intervention, or with the help of God or the grace of God. And she was a Protestant. I mean, she converted to Catholicism. This wasn't always her faith, and a lot of the strength that she finds in order to stay sober comes from, you know, from really sort of delving in. And she said this is really her mission. This is really her work,
right.
Is to live this life and to share her story. And, you know, it's not always easy, but I know that for her, it's definitely been the right call.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, you know, like the old saying, you got to go where the people are. And the people are there, and there she is. And as she said too, you know, in the piece, only God could work it out, she said.
Especially the younger people, for sure, definitely.
Yeah, well, that of course is it for tonight. Now coming up tomorrow, Hispanic Heritage Month is upon us, and Bishop DiMarzio is going to be here to talk about the unique contribution of Hispanic Americans. We have that and more coming up for you tomorrow.
Meantime, remember, we are always online at currentsny.net. And until next time, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.